Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. I guess it's 11 a.m. Used to doing these at night. So excited to be here on a Thursday morning. For those of you that are joining, and maybe you're new to seeing me streaming, my name is Chris Gamble. I have a business called Gamble Data, and also have a YouTube channel called the Data Engineering Channel, where I cover demos on various ETL tool or various data engineering tools, do code examples. I do a lot of training on different concepts, and try to help people to really get excited about data. So today we're going to be talking about you know really secret management and security, especially in orchestration, in creating pipelines, things like that. The concept that I use for this analogy is: are you going to give a stranger the keys to your house? And if not, then why are you still hard coding secrets in your code base, right? Why are you still putting API keys? Why are you still putting, credentials, whether it's even usernames, right? Shouldn't be hard coded in your Python scripts, not even in your ADF pipelines. I would still encourage you to use, Key Vault to store your secrets and then access those. And today I'm going to walk through a couple of Python scripts on how to access those in AWS and in Azure, as well as answer any of your questions about security and data and orchestration along the way. And if you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you just want to say hi, let me know that you're here. Would love to hear from you and see that who all has joined us today. So again, I'm Chris. For those of you that haven't been here before, I've been in data engineering for 25 years, and I am just looking to kind of give back to the community, and help people be excited about data and teach them how to do it, securely and safely. So, and we're going to do an AMA today, which AMA is just Ask Me Anything. For those of you that, are walking through, this is one of the most overlooked and really one of the biggest security risks to, data infiltration. Parts of modern data engineering that often get overlooked because people are more excited about doing the transformations and really getting their hands into, pulling data and pushing data and transforming data and cleaning data. There's so many aspects to it, often glaze over security, especially with cybersecurity not necessarily always feeling like a data person's job, whether you're an engineer or an architect. Architects probably a little bit more than engineers, but even it's analysts. Everybody has a piece to this. Data security is definitely a team sport. Analysts, engineers, architects, even the scientists, making sure that you aren't exposing credentials in your code. And whether you're building in AWS or Azure or GCP, you should never, ever store your database passwords, your API keys, your tokens in plain text. So I'm going to, again, walk you through the right way to do that today, and we're going to get into it. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to share screen. There it is. So this is how you do it in Azure. And again, make sure that you are, and we'll also walk through how to create a secret in Azure within Key Vault here in a minute. But right here is a Python script. Again, there's a couple of pip installs that you have to have here. You'll see those at the top: Azure Identity and Azure Key Vault. You do have to have the Azure. If you're doing it, testing it locally, you need to have your Azure CLI installed. And you could get that out there. Be sure that you Google that and download and install that. Here, we're just setting up our Key Vault URL. And so this is just your Key Vault name, .vault.azure.net. You're going to use just the default Azure credential. Again, doing this locally, you need to have the Azure CLI installed. And then you're going to use just the default Azure credential. Again, doing this locally, you need to have the Azure CLI installed. 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 Next, we're accessing the secret client. So again, we're using that key vault URL, and then we're passing in the credentials that we're retrieving from that default Azure credential. Then we're gonna, just fetch some secrets: database password, connection string, API key, and it's as simple as client dot get secret, because again, we created this client secret client up here, dot get secret, and the name of your secret, and dot value. It's as simple as that. Now, if you're doing this in Databricks, it's a little bit different, using the Databricks utilities. So it's just dp util util, if I could spell, dot I think it's dot get secret again, but I need to double check here. Yeah, dot secrets dot get. Oh, and there's that S in utils. Really as simple as this, and then you're going to put in the name of the secret. So BDE dev PW, and then comma, and then you're going to put in, or I'm sorry, it's backwards. You're going to put in the name of your key vault, comma, and then the name of the secret. So it'll want like this, dev kv2, comma, and then the name of your secret. And it's as easy as that. And you're going to store, you're in GD PW. So that's how you do it in Databricks. And the great thing about Databricks is that you don't have to worry about the password, right? As long as your Databricks environment has access to that key vault, then you're good. You do have to mount it, you have to mount it and stuff like that. But that is how you would retrieve the secret in Databricks. So not very difficult. Again, very similar if you have Databricks that's behind AWS. Very similar concept here. So it's easy as that. And then you just, utilize, those secrets in your code. Student who's interested in data engineering recently worked on a project where I used Airflow and AWS, where I stored the AWS secret key and access key for the bucket in a bash. You could do it that way. Again, the key vaults, in AWS, you have secrets manager. Those are there for a reason. Those are there to protect and store your secrets. And I wouldn't recommend doing it, storing it in a bash, in that bash RC script. I would recommend using Secret Manager and then using Boto 3 to access the secret and Secret Manager. And that does two different things, right? One, that keeps it secure. Again, that secret vault is there for a reason, in order to secure your secrets, your passwords, your credentials, your API keys, all your connection strings. That's why AWS has that resource. In addition, it also gives you a method to easily, and a central location to easily go to and manage all of that as well. So when you need to rotate your keys, when you need to change your credentials, you have a central location to go to, change that credential, and you don't have to worry about, is there some RC script out there, RC file out there that needs to be updated? Is there some text file out there, God forbid, that needs to be updated? Is there a username hard code? Obviously, probably wouldn't change usernames. Hopefully, you're using service accounts and not using individual accounts, but that's a whole nother. It's part of the subject, but a whole nother topic we'll get into. But hopefully, you're using service accounts. Hopefully, you're using, again, passwords for those service accounts, and then you have that central location. So in order to make it manageable for not only you but your team, in order to make it more secure, definitely use Secret Manager, and we'll I'll show you the Boto 3 integration here in a minute. Um, so again, not real complicated from a Azure standpoint. From a Boto 3 standpoint, it's super similar. Did I paste it here? We'll just go here. Again, you'll have to do your pip install for Boto 3, but then you also need to import JSON because Boto 3, because AWS returns your secrets in a JSON format, a JSON payload. And so again, you're going to create a client, connect the secret manager, you're going to add your region name, you're going to tell it, you're going to pass in your secret name, and it's a little different in AWS because you could have some folders, some organization there. And so you'll do prod / the name of your secret. Again, here we're going to get our secret value. Screen's a little too big, so I'm wrong way. Make it a little smaller there. Okay, so you'll see you get secret value ID, secret ID equals your secret name. So pass in that string, and then we're going to retrieve the secret out of that payload, out of that JSON payload. So not real difficult, not super complex, but important that you do it this way. It again, a little bit easier when you're in AWS Glue, when you're in ADF to create these connections. But I would definitely, again, don't store it. Please don't store it directly in your Python script. Track times, track themes. Sorry. Storing it in the RC script is, a step better than just hard coding it in your Python script or in your code, but still not necessarily secure. So Anonymous has a question. Absolutely. Shoot. But still, yeah, again, still not secure. If you're testing things locally, cool. But when you're pushing into prod, even if you're pushing to a cloud environment in dev, don't. So that's my spiel on don't hard code your secrets, your credentials, your API keys, connection strings. Again, I would encourage you to even put usernames, all your client names and stuff in a secret. Yeah. Anonymous, what's your question? Shoot. Hopefully it's not how much coffee do you drink a day. As I drink my coffee here. Well, while we're waiting for Anonymous to ask their question, I'll continue. Talking about AWS, you could attach some IAM roles to EC2 so that your orchestration service can access those secrets without needing that access to the keys at all. So makes it a little bit smoother when you're in within AWS, within those Lambda or EC2 environments. Where can we find good paying remote jobs in data engineering? I have several good. I'll say that I'll say a couple things. One, as a fresher, super hard right now to jump right into data engineering if you don't already have a role as some type of data analyst, DBA, something like that, right? SQL developer. Try to jump into those kinds of roles, even if you can jump into like a QA role where you could get some exposure and and build some connections with other people in that data realm. Then that will help you to further your career. Um, like to learn data engineering. Which platform do I suggest? Current time working as tech support engineer. How complexities when compared to tech support? Um, so a couple of different questions here, all kind of along that same theme. Um, Good paying remote jobs. A lot of data engineering jobs are still remote. That's not any different than what it has been in during COVID. If you're open to working in the office, there are definitely more opportunities. You have less competition when it comes to getting out there and working locally. Um, so if you're open to that, then it'll give you some additional flexibility when it comes to availability and competition. But really getting a good paying remote job in data engineering, you're going to have already had some data experience, some data background in order to jump straight into a remote role. Unless you luck out, again, the competition for, junior level data engineer roles are already super high. Um, and yeah, that's my spiel on that. Anonymous, what cloud platform do I suggest? Um, I suggest uh, Azure, especially for newbies, especially if you're familiar with the Microsoft ecosystem. Um, you know, Azure, does a good job of kind of keeping that bar low for entry. But if you're used to Azure, then I would stick with Azure. If you are, if you have the technical chops already, if you are very familiar with networking, maybe you already have, you're like your networking plus certificate, and you already have some experience with networking, then you could jump into like AWS. AWS definitely you're going to need a little bit heavier of a technical acumen already before you jump into it. Azure, again, it's a little bit easier to jump into. A lot of it is click and drag. I want to meet you. How can I meet you by person? You could reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, you'd reach out to me via email, and we can sync up. There are yeah. Should we only focus on Glue, Lambda, CloudWatch, uh, GLWF, step functions for AWS, other services as well, like API Gateway? Start with, um, I would start with focusing on, you know, building up your Python skills, right? Because you're going to need that for the Lambda piece, even the glue piece to an extent. Um, Glue, Lambda, CloudWatch, the Elastic services, ECR, ECS. Along with that, make sure you're familiar with Docker, right? One of my favorite patterns, one of my favorite data patterns is to write Python scripts, write the Docker script, go ahead and containerize all that, push it into the Elastic repository within AWS, and then work with it, run those repositories in a EC2 instance or in a Fargate instance within ECS, right? Um, that's my suggestion. As far and CloudWatch is important, just again for the obviously for the monitoring and the logging, and so be familiar with using CloudWatch, how to get to it, how to find the container or the run that you're looking for, all those kinds of things, so that you can effectively monitor and troubleshoot your pipelines, your ETL that's running. Um, and obviously, Lambda is super important. I I would focus on those things that you have listed. I would add the Elastic services and worry about the API gateway piece later down the line. Um, if you're already maybe a junior or mid-level engineer, then yeah, I would wrap in that API gateway. It's going to be super important in your career overall, but but I would focus on that first handful first. You have a good solid foundation with the rest of that first, and you could even leave off the GLWF and the step functions. I would focus on uh, the Elastic services before that piece, and then come back to that piece, and then the API gateway. So that's my recommendation. So great conversation today, guys. Be sure again to put your comments down in the chat. Let me know what questions you may have about getting into data engineering, about what what is commonly used. If you have questions about what types of things are commonly used, if you want to, Anonymous asked uh, how to reach me personally, and I'm going to put some links down in the chat with kind of my LinkedIn and my email address, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. As well, you'd reach out, always connect with me via the website, which is gambledataengineering.com. All of that information and more is on the homepage of the channel, along with the link to get to our Discord, where we have a Discord channel. So those are those things. So I do want to get into creating secrets in Azure real quick here for you, and we're going to yeah, absolutely. So that's my email if you want to get in touch with me, my LinkedIn. Just let me know. And so we're gonna stop the screen. We're gonna add the screen. All right. So for those of you that haven't been in Azure, this is the Azure portal. So you could create your keys here. You could see that there's I have several resources, Synapse and Key Vaults and different resource groups and data lake storage. But these little icons, the big key are your accounts. The little key, as you'll see, we click on more sources here. Key vaults. You'll see that the key vaults, you click on here. And so this is a key vault. And so this is where you would store your secrets, your credentials, all of those kinds of things. Again, not only for security, the security piece is so incredibly important. I want you to know that if I see your credentials in your GitHub account, in a Python script in your Git, I am probably going to puke in my trash can because it makes me that nauseous. Don't do it. Please don't do it. Don't make me puke. Store your secrets in a secret manager, in a key vault, in a secure place. Don't expose your credentials. Don't expose yourself to regulatory fines and any amount of other data privacy issues. So you'll see that the overview kind of gives you a bunch of information. The important pieces here are this vault URI. This is what you'll need to connect to and access your key vault. Again, if you're in Databricks or when you're in ADF or Synapse, you'll really just need this devkv2. So just actually the name of your key vault. But if you're connecting via Python script locally, then you'll need the whole URL. So you'll see keys and secrets. Generally, you're going to create secrets. You could create keys. You could import, you could create an RSA token, various encryption size, rates. You set your activation and your expiration date. This is important to make sure that you are rotating your keys appropriately. Again, you could set your key rotation policy. It's not, it's not configured right now, but you could create a policy for your account that has key rotation built in, so that it forces all of your secrets to be rotated and your keys to be rotated. Let's go away from that. Um, and but oops, I didn't mean to back all the way out. Here we'll create a secret. So super simple. I jumped a bunch of steps. So along the side, normally this is collapsed. Expand the objects, click on secrets. There's a generate import button here. You'd upload a secret. If you have a file locally that has your secret in it, you could upload the file. But generally, you'll just create a new secret. You'll want to name your secret. We'll call it secret test. It doesn't like underscores, so don't use underscores. When you type in your secret, it's going to be just dots. You're not going to be able to see it. So if you need to type it out in a notepad and then copy and paste it, then that's fine, so that you get to see it and make sure that you're typing it in right. Here, you'll put in your content type. I find this super important. I always put here like API key or database credential or database, username, whatever the case may be. Set your activation date. If there's a specific date and time that key or that credential's not going to be active until, then set that activation date and time. Set your expiration date. A lot of companies want you to rotate your keys every 90 days or 6 months, depending on what the key is. So be sure you set that date. Again, that will force your hand to make sure that you're going in here and rotating these credentials. And then you could add your tags. I would definitely recommend using tags, and adding tags. Who created it? What project or system is it being used for? All the different specifics about what that tag is for, so that you could search on it and everything comes up for that grouping. We're going to hit create, and it's as easy as that. It is not super complex, but do it all the time. Please, please, please. You can manage deleted secrets. You could update a secret, right? You'll see, if you click on it, you'll see the current version. You could create a new version. Again, you don't create a whole new secret every time a credential changes. You just create a new version of the secret. So then you just come in here, and I'm just putting in a bunch of junk in there so that I could put something in there. You always have to do the content type. It would be great when you create a new version if that would carry over, but it doesn't. Again, set the activation date and the expiration date, especially if you know what your password is going to be, maybe 2 or 3 days in advance. You go ahead and put your password in there, go ahead and set it, and then your activation date, and then that way you're ready. You're not doing it reactively, you're doing it proactively. And then you hit create. And then once it creates, then you'll see there's an older version, the current version, and then it's commonly referred to as latest, right? Current version is latest. And you'll see that as a selection when we look at ADF. So again, as I'm going through this, super excited that we've got people jumping on. Let me know, say hello. Let me know that you're here. Let me know if you have any questions about security. We did cover earlier the Boto 3 integration, which is AWS. We covered the pulling credentials from Python using the Azure Identity and Azure Key Vault libraries. Let me know if you need me to, throw that back up on the screen, or if you want the copies of those scripts, let me know down in the chat and shoot me your email address, and I will shoot you over those scripts. But do want to show you the integration with ADF as well. So let's jump into ADF and Synapse. Just jump into Synapse. think it's this one. Nope, this one. Um, so we're going to jump into the Synapse workspace. For those of you that don't know, ADF and Synapse are incredibly similar, really almost identical from a pipeline standpoint. So if uh, what I show you here is applicable to ADF as well as Synapse. Um, so give it a second to spin up. Not sure why it's spinning. Oh, that's SQL database. So pipelines, and you'll see that I have a pipeline here already, just that I use for examples here. And you'll see that I've got some sources, JSON blob. This is the dedicated Gamble. You see that we're going to edit this connection. We've got a domain name, a database name, authentication type, all this kind of stuff. And so the great thing about Synapse and ADF is that if you grant access, if you're using an Azure SQL Server or a Synapse database, SQL database, then you could just use kind of the integrated tools um, within Azure and provide access, right? You have to make sure that you grant access, and access can be particularly complicated with Azure, and there's multiple layers, but make sure that you're granting access to that, and shared access amongst the resources using your IAM identity manager. And so, but let us, so those are just so that's one way you could directly, just access from the subscription, server name, database. We'll just do that for now. And again, we're using the system assigned identity. You could use SQL authentication. Again, use the Azure Key Vault, right? So this is how simple it is. You put your name here. You could add dynamic content so that if it needs to change depending on different situations, then you could do that, especially depending on how least privilege things are being set. But here, you could create a new key vault, or you could. So the important piece here that I probably should have set up before we got in here, but it's good for the live stream as well, is you have to set up your connection to your key vault. And so that's what I'm doing now. You kind of saw me click on the little toolbox along the left-hand side, clicked on link services, and then hit new. And we're going to just come up here and say key, and it's going to come up Azure Key Vault. We're going to continue, and we're going to say GDE, which is just Gamble Data Engineering, KV, so that we know what it is. And then we're going to say from the subscription, we're going to select the Key Vault, and then authentication method, system assigned, and to the link service, to the secret. We could test the connection. Connection is successful, and we're going to create. Super easy. That's your connection to your Key Vault. You need to publish it, and that's all it is. So that's how you do it in Synapse, set up your connection to your Key Vault. Once you have your connection set up to your Key Vault, then you could come back over to here. And we could, again, I could show you how to connect to the Key Vault. Yes, it'll be recorded and you could rewatch it later. Again, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn, shoot me a DM, and I could shoot you a link to the recording. Thanks for jumping on. All right, so Key Vault, link service. Now you see that Key Vault is here. Again, make sure you have your Key Vault set up prior to, but it was good to kind of show that here. Secret name. Sometimes you have to refresh this. And sometimes you'll have issues. Again, Key vaults can sometimes be go directly to a secret. Um, Picky, especially when you first set up that connection. Uh, the connection is successful. Yep, everything looks fine. Boom, boom. And sometimes when you first set up that connection, it could take some time to turn an invalid status code forbidden. I bet this is an authentication piece because I bet read is not granted to, again, great for the live stream so that you get to learn how to troubleshoot. So we need to jump back to our dev key vault 2. That is the one that we're using, right? Yep. So let's jump back in here and look at our access control. We're going to check access for our Synapse. And it doesn't have access. So that's, yeah, it connected, it saw it, but now this is where I was talking. There's multiple layers of kind of access control in Azure. Sometimes you have to play around with it. So we're going to add a role assignment, members, manage identity, Synapse. We're going to select, say next, Synapse, select a role. Give it contributor access. We're going to review, assign. And it takes a second. You'll see in the upper right-hand corner, it's adding the role assignment. Again, with Azure, when you run into, oh, it doesn't have access, sometimes you're troubleshooting like this. You know, there's multiple levels of access here. Hooray! What you got? Are there some data engineering roles that require more coding than others? Absolutely. That is an awesome question. You will run into some roles. I had a role recently where they were almost exclusively using Informatica Power Center and ICS, and there was little to no actual hands-on coding that occurred. There was some SQL, right? There's definitely some SQL development type work to create tables and to do some of the querying and things like that, but a lot of it was being all of the orchestration workflows pipelines that were being created were all in Informatica, and Informatica is a very low code / no code type tool. And so there's definitely data engineering positions out there that are super low coding type roles. I like the ones that are more coding. Obviously, if you get into a role where you're using Databricks, and you're using, Databricks, or some companies really exclusively use Snowflake, especially as Snowflake has become more robust over recent years, and you could schedule tasks and kind of create some orchestration, layering like Airflow on top of it. And if you're doing it, if your company's going that route, very Python heavy, very SQL heavy. But yeah, great question, because there are definitely some lower code type data engineering roles. I like the more heavy. Yeah. Jorge, I would say that if you like the more the heavier coding type roles, um, I would go for those Databricks roles, right? Those Databricks roles are going to be heavier coding. If and AWS, Databricks, you're gonna need more, a better, stronger technical acumen, and they're going to be probably more interesting to you. If especially if you're already working with Python and APIs and SQL already. Um, if you like data, if you love data, you love working with data and coding in general. I do too. It's a good combination of skills, good combination of passions, and um, I think it would serve you well as a data engineer. I think that again, I would focus on the roles that are um, Databricks slash AWS type roles. Sometimes you'll see companies that are Azure and Databricks, and that would work well. But with Databricks, you're going to be working heavily with you know kind of bigger data. You're going to be working heavily with probably data scientists. You're going to be working heavily with um, you're going to be writing almost exclusively Python using PySpark and the built-in Databricks libraries. Um, so those would be uh, what I'd search for. Just search for Databricks when you're searching job roles. Having existential crisis because I don't know if I want to switch to data engineering or machine learning. Uh, those are similar but definitely different roles, right? They work. It's one of those things that they work together. If you're interested and really love the algorithm, the predictive analytics, the that type of work, then go the machine learning route, right? If you love the whole piping of data, cleaning, investigating, being kind of a data detective, then data engineering is probably a good route as well. I love data engineering. Uh, Definitely have some interest in machine learning and predictive analytics, but I love data engineering. So what about DevOps and data engineering projects? Data engineering needs to do that, or dedicated DevOps engineer will do that. It depends. This is a great question. Um, it depends heavily on the company that you're with. Some companies will have some dedicated DevOps people that they're doing that work for you. Uh, but a lot of companies that I've been in, and I think more are getting into that DevOps space now. Um, but a lot of companies that I've been in over the last, say, 5, 10 years, um, since DevOps has really been more of a thing, uh, didn't really either had a very immature um, group. I mean, not I don't mean immature like they're kids and they're goofing off, but it's just not developed yet, right? They've not matured to to the point from a DevOps perspective that they were very hands on, and I still had to do most of that work. And so I'll say that's my spiel on that. And medium sized and smaller companies aren't going to have that DevOps engineer to help you with that. It's going to be your role. Great questions. Awesome. Thank you all for jumping on and talking to me today. Uh, Definitely have had some great conversations today. Let me know what other questions you have down in the comments. So I'm going to jump back in. Oops. Jump back into this. Oops. Oh, I mean, no, that makes sense. Jorge, I would say, uh, what do you love? I mean, what are you passionate about? When you think about uh, creative Banda, um, when you wake up in the morning and you think about being a back end developer, are you excited? Are you passionate? Are you excited to jump up and get into it? Or do you think, oh, I really wish I could focus on the data today? Um, and as far as data engineer, machine learning engineer, I mean, that's, you could start down that. That'll be an existential crisis for later. But as far as moving from a back end developer, my brother is a kind of a full stack developer, and but he started in front end, he moved to back end. He might be a data engineer at some point in his career because he loves doing that back end stuff. But um, but yeah, I mean, I would say that it's a normal path. I think that that happens. I think back end developers become back end developers. They get into things and really get their hands dirty and start, learning SQL and start really loving the data side of that back end piece and not just building those connections to the front end. And I think that they move into those data careers. Start moving into data engineering or even data architecture, right? Especially being a back end engineer and learning how things interconnect with other systems. It's, you could move into data engineering and then data architecture or into machine learning or data science. So I think that happens. It's great. I think it's a natural progression. I also think that I think that financially it's a good move. I don't have a lot of experience doing a back end developer internship right now. That's fair. And the reality is maybe you spend a year or two being a back end developer. Um, and then and this other question, which kind of leads me into creative Banda's here question here is data engineering for freshers. A lot of companies aren't going to trust you in a data engineering role unless you have some experience with data, with programming. You need a back end developer is great experience. A software engineer, junior software engineers you see out there are great experience to move into data engineering roles. I would encourage you while you're in those roles, if that's the path you want to go, to really network with your data team, build those relationships with those other data leaders, and that will make that transition into those other roles that much easier for you later on. Um, so, great questions. How easy is the transition from backend developer to data engineering? Way easy, way easier than from a data analyst to data engineering because you have already done more Python. You already have that skill set a little bit more built out than a analyst. And so that's my 2 cents. I think I skipped. I did that. How easy? Nope. How can I join your boot camp? You could reach out to me. Reach out to me. You could take a look at my website. I'll put it in here. I have I have some coaching / mentoring packages out there that we do one-on-one. I'm working on building out my boot camp, and so that we can do that. But thank you for asking. But yeah, jump on the website. You could go to the resources, and you'll see the mentoring program. From India, nowadays most data engineering jobs asking for DevOps visualization. Yeah, the future is going to be sole data role who should do everything. That was the past too. Uh, it damn when I first started this journey 25, yeah, just about 25 years ago, uh, I was just the data guy. I mean, once I got into a data role, like I was just the data guy. I did the data engineering, I did the analytics, I did all of the sourcing, all of the networking to connect and find and connect everything. So it's a pendulum, right? Just with a lot, you'll find as you move through your careers, regardless of what role you're in, a lot of things in business are a pendulum. Things swing back and forth, just like, clothing fads swing back and forth. And you'll hear your parents talk about, oh, yeah, we dressed like that in the 70s and the 80s. Um, and business themes also swing back and forth. Things loosen up, less red tape. Things tighten up, more red tape. You see it. Heck, at AT&T, um, you know, we move from one cloud provider to another cloud provider, and the pendulum would swing back and forth. And as you'll find that in recession times, um, things get tighter. You're going to be asked to do more with what you have, and you're going to find that you have broader responsibilities of having to be visualization, DevOps, analytics, and an engineer. Kind of, especially, and in smaller companies, mid-sized smaller companies, it's always been that way. It has never really left because they only can afford to hire one or two data people, and then you have to broadly cover all the things. In times of prosperity, in times of less recession, uh, less economic recession, you'll find that you have the opportunity to really dig deep in your skill set, right? And really go deep in a specific direction, and really kind of fine tune some of your skills and really, build upon those technical acumens. But yeah, and we see this analytics engineer position open up, right? And with that, again, that's that pendulum swinging back to those times when data people did all the things. I follow the YouTube data janitor. Yeah, I lead like him. I like him as well. And he says only one entry level position, data engineering and machine learning, is data analyst. I think especially, and he is a machine learning engineer, right? And he does often say that really the biggest, and he discourages like the DBA piece, right? He's like, DBA is that's not the role to get into data anymore. And I would agree. DBAs are very pigeonholed for what they continue to be. Um, I'll say that I've seen plenty of back end devs though move into data engineering because again they're building those skills. They have that. They've demonstrated that they have that programming chops. They again have built relationships with other people in technical roles, and when it oftentimes I think that data leaders are surprised when they see somebody from a backend dev apply to a data engineering position because they automatically think that you're going to go into like a SWE position, right? A software engineer position, as opposed to that data side. But it's still a great transition, especially if you're already there. If that's where you're at now as a backend dev, you have the opportunity to continue to build those skills, to continue to, deepen your SQL knowledge, your Python knowledge, and those skills, and then take those and transfer them. Those are great transferable skills, and apply them to a data engineering position. If you want jumped right into a machine learning engineer, that's probably not going to happen, right? You're probably going to have to, for a machine learning engineer, you need that Python piece that you're developing, and you need that visualization piece that you would get as an analyst that you're really not getting as a backend engineer. Don't like the visualization part with this. If you don't love the visualization part, then data engineering is probably the right path for you, right? We're not doing a whole lot of visualization as a data engineer, focused way more on the actual piping of the data and the cleaning and all of the all that, pushing data back into other systems. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I appreciate that. That means a lot to me. All right. Just started as a junior SQL. Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Congratulations. what can I do to further and is doing SAP beneficial to in any manner? Um, I hate SAP. I'll tell you right now. Uh, over the years, I it's not my preferred uh, system of choice, but there are plenty of companies out there that continue to use SAP. Definitely would if that is something a system that you have exposure to and that you are have developed a knack for. uh, I would definitely take my time to deepen that skill set, and then it will help you kind of to develop your own niche of this is this is what I could do, right? That's a great selling point for you when you do get ready to either branch out on your own as a consultant, or uh, if you're applying to other roles, the competition would be definitely less if that's uh, if that's the direction you want to go and you're excited about. Um, if you're currently a junior SQL developer, continue to build those SQL skills, continue to um, really familiarize yourself with what data looks like, what dirty data looks like, how to clean data, security. Continue to kind of deepen those skills, and then move into and start looking at, I'd say within 6 months to a year, start looking at uh, either data engineer roles or data analyst roles to kind of start to broaden your skill set. Could you please give an idea how much or what kind of DSA you've used in your projects? Uh, the DS part of it right is super important. The algorithm piece, eh, um, but uh, it's important. It's not as important as it would be for a machine learning engineer or a data scientist, um, but still important. Boom, boom. As far as like how much, like it's so important when you are planning out, especially um, when you have a project where it's a new data set for your business, right? Maybe you've integrated a new part of your business, started a new part of the business, and you have a whole new kind of something your business hasn't looked at before from a data perspective. Um, then you really have to plan it out, right? You have to plan out, okay, where's this data source? And really do all the modeling, right? And understand how databases manage things, understand things like partitioning and distribution, um, so that you can effectively pull that data in. Um, so it's super important. Again, the algorithm piece, um, the data structures piece, super important. Understanding how that data is going to flow and where it's going to flow to and how things work. Hash maps, uh, arrays, trees, and how you're pulling the data, especially if you're in a Python heavy position. Um, Again, that the data structures piece is the important piece there. That again, the algorithm piece um, comes into play not as much with engineering. How many years of experience do I need in order to switch from backend developer to data engineering or machine learning engineering? To jump into data engineering, again, I would say 2 years at the most. Like it 100% depends on um yeah, Jorge, I do. I put it in the chat. It's in the chat a little bit further up, but it is also on the homepage for the channel. You'll see my LinkedIn. Let me grab the link again and I'll drop it in there. There it is. Yeah, I absolutely don't mind. So, and I'm actually streaming this right now on LinkedIn as well as YouTube. Uh, so yeah. Um, I'd say again 2 years. I think at 2 years you start to, between 2 and 3 years, you start to kind of get stuck um, in a certain path. People start to see you as a certain thing, and you start getting pigeonholed. So unless you start looking at a year and a half, 2 years in, start looking at jumping to a different route, then you start to get pigeonholed, at least in the company that you're in. Um, so I'd say no more than 2 years, uh, and I'd start looking after about a year. You're welcome. Do you have a link? Yeah. Put the LinkedIn. Here's the LinkedIn for anybody that wants to reach out and connect with me. Absolutely, feel free. I do post a lot, fairly active on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. Um, Again, been trying to kind of change the day and time. This seems to be a great time. Definitely have had a lot of interaction today, so thank you all for jumping on. I appreciate you all. Definitely have had a great conversation. What other language tech stacks will I need to learn for database engineer? Um, we've talked about Python, right? Python, SQL is super important no matter what. Um, Python, Java. It sometimes Java. I've only had a couple of positions where Java was important. Um, Again, pick a cloud, whether it be GCP, AWS, or Azure. Pick one of those clouds. Let me share something with you real quick here. Lost my video. Where do y'all go? Oh, there it is. Let me share. Stop screen. Share screen. Share. Um, so this is so I created this honeycomb of traits, right? These are different things that you need as a data engineer. Um, and you'll see that the core of this, the heart of this, is the SQL piece, and it kind of branches out. On the left hand side are your more technical skills. On the right hand side are your softer skills. And so again, start with SQL, Python, wrap in, probably some containerization with Docker. I would definitely take a look at that. You know, you could start to get into some predictive analytics and machine learning. You'll see that those are kind of on the edge there. Power BI and Tableau, for the visualization piece, if you want to start reaching out into that. But Python, Linux, um, again, you get Java, not so much, but every now and again you hit something where you need Java. Um, just because that's the tech stack of the company that you're working for. Definitely get familiar with Excel. I know that probably doesn't sound super important, but you'll find that a lot of what you're doing is pulling data from, or at least translating what people are doing in Excel into how you're cleaning and how you're transforming the data from a data engineering perspective. So being familiar with Excel is important. Pick a ETL tool to focus on. Again, one of the cloud ones, whether that be AWS Glue or ADF/Synapse or BigQuery or whatever the case may be. Get familiar with some ETL tools, Informatica. Um, get familiar with Airflow and DBT are super important. Um, Again, start to continue to build your Python skills. And then over here, you've got your soft skills, right? Your teamwork, your communication, that you're sociable, that you know how to have a conversation with a person just hanging out. is important. It will help to further your career as you continue to move forward. Um, data warehousing, data modeling are, kind of going back to that DSA question, are important. Understanding how to model effectively and efficiently, so that your queries run um, efficiently. Data storage, data architecture, data governance. So you get to that on the data engineering, gambledataengineering.com website, and take a look at that. So what do you think about Snowflake? I love Snowflake. Uh, and I would say that you don't only code in SQL in Snowflake. You can you could create notebooks in Snowflake now as well. And so you could create notebooks and schedule those notebooks to run in Snowflake. So you can use Python in Snowflake. When one of the patterns that I was talking about earlier was to write a Python script, putting it into a Docker container, and using AWS to run that container right in Fargate or an EC2 instance. That pattern I was using Snowflake, and that data pushed into Snowflake. So just because your company uses Snowflake doesn't mean that you're exclusively using Snowflake for the ETL piece as well. My favorite SQL flavor, I mean, I grew up in the Microsoft ecosystem, so I like T-SQL and Microsoft SQL, but just regular SQL. But my least favorite is PL SQL. That's easier. I honestly love the Snowflake. The things that you have, the functions you have access to in Snowflake. Snowflake does such a great job parsing semi-structured data like XML and JSON data. I love Snowflake. Can you recommend platforms to practice SQL? Yeah, absolutely. So personally, I am affiliated with Codecademy. So I like Codecademy. I like Codecademy for a couple reasons. One is it has a lot of different routes, and it kind of gamifies your learning journey. Um, so I like it for that. In addition, I ran into a couple companies that their coding reviews, their coding uh, kind of tests are done via Codecademy. And so if you're familiar with the platform already, it helps, and will kind of help with that. And I have a link that you could get 15% off. I actually think that if you use this link right now, I think they're running a deal for 50% off as well. So I like Codecademy. Hey Zephyr, thanks for joining, man. I appreciate it. Want to learn Azure networking for Databricks? Ooh, again, I just got finished saying how much I love Snowflake, but like as far as like doing the ETL and writing code, I love Databricks. Like the way that Databricks is set up, the way it integrates with like the service buses in Azure and passing those messages to and from, and especially if you're working with like IoT devices, I love Azure and Databricks. That pattern, that stack is awesome. I would encourage it. It's super fun. And Jorge, honestly, um, from especially from a backend developer, like that Azure Databricks stack is pretty awesome. Why do data engineers hate Fabric so much? Because I hate Fabric. Oh my gosh. Okay, so many reasons. So many reasons I hate Fabric. Um, Let me count the ways. One, it is incredibly expensive for companies to have a Fabric account and integrate everything into Fabric. I'll tell you that when Fabric first came out, when it was just before it was GA, I was talking to the Microsoft reps, and like they were like, we could cut on your operational costs. It's less and blah blah. Blah." And I asked the question, can you show me based on our current Azure usage what we would save by going to Fabric? And they just kind of started stumbling over their words. They're like, well, it's really more of a operational cost reduction, and you won't use as much man hours to do this and that. And early on, I still don't think they've resolved this. Migrating from an existing like Synapse uh, pattern or ADF pattern into Fabric, what you had to manually do all of it. Like it wasn't just a export and import, right? It wasn't just like you could slide it over. I do have a video about top book recommendations. I actually have a blog as well, so if you prefer a blog, I've got that. It's on the website. But in addition, until recently, you couldn't have a database in Fabric, right? There was no SQL database in Fabric. That's been a more recent development. Jorge, you lost your picture. I wonder why. Do you have a video about top book recommendations? I do. It is. It's in my live list, so it's kind of deep, right? But let me pull up books. Shareable link. There's the video on book recommendations, and if you prefer a blog, we have a blog as well. And I'll just put the link in here to all the blogs so that you can take a look if you're interested. And you can see the data engineering blogs. So, all right. Well, again, thank you, Zaffer. I appreciate you. Thank you, Jorge, for jumping on with me. And all the rest of you that have jumped on with me today. Really have enjoyed our session. I try to do these once a week. I think this seems to be a good time. Thursdays, maybe 11:30 to 12:30. So maybe that'll be our new time. Been trying to kind of feel out when's a good time. So let me know down in the comments if you have a time that works best for you. Fresher in this field, joined a company as a data engineer. Nice, but not satisfied with the work culture and overall how the work is done here. So planning for a switch. You run into that. Sometimes it's just not a good cultural fit. Sometimes it's not a good data stack fit. Especially if we talked about like Jorge and some of the others really are passionate about Python and really love Python. If that's your passion, if that's what you love, then I would encourage you to focus on the Databricks end of it, right? Or even AWS. But if you love more the no code, low code tools, then maybe Informatica and Azure is the path that you want to take. But yeah, that happens, and sometimes so much of work is really around who you're working with and who your team is. And that's important. That's important from a work-life balance. That's important from a just from a mental health perspective. Sam, thanks for jumping on, man. But yeah, well, again, thank you all so much for jumping on today. I've really enjoyed our session. I need to jump, need to grab some lunch, and then My daughter is graduating from elementary school today, so go into that. But thank you all so much for jumping on. Let me know, down in the community and one of the community chats. If you ever have any questions, reach out to me via my email. Jump onto the website, but let me know if there's anything I could ever help you with. Which one, Azure, AWS, is better? Depends on your technical acumen. If you have a strong technical acumen, you are really have some background or really like the networking side of things. If you again have a stronger kind of technical background, go to AWS. If you grew up or have learned via the Microsoft stack, then stick with Azure. From a kind of share of market standpoint, Azure is bigger. AWS is definitely smaller, but the skill set for AWS is definitely uh, more stringent, and so your competition for those roles are going to be less. So that's my 2 cents. Again, when you start getting into the ETL tool and the rest of that stack, then that's important. So cool. All right. Again, got to jump. Thank you all so much. I appreciate it, and I'll talk to you again soon.